Hopelessness, helplessness, despair, numbness, depression. Those are the 5 tenets of the doomer. In light of recent events, people have not only been losing their hope for the future, but their faith in humanity, and they don't know what to do with their lives and how to go on. You've probably noticed this distinct trend towards negativity by now. A funny self-deprecating meme now and then, and sentiments like "I'm a piece of garbage," or "I'm such a disappointment to my bloodline, lol." I'm 26 and I've yet to find a romantic partner, let alone a mortgage deal on a house. And I wanted to be something when I grow up, like an astronaut, but I just ended up being a terminally online retail worker instead. I'm actually in between jobs right now and I've given up on my former education, because I believe the world will collapse in 5 years or less, or AI will take every possible job I could have acquired in college. My life is meaningless and I have achieved nothing of value, nothing to remember me by, and no children who will carry on my legacy. I'm starting to think that life itself is meaningless, and it doesn't even matter if I'm hopeless. It's all indifferent in the grand scheme of the universe. I've never had a war to fight for, or a cause I could sacrifice my life to. But it's not like I would be able to be a hero, because I don't even have the energy to get out of bed in the morning. And even if I muster up everything I have, I'm such a sad, pathetic loser I can't even get the courage to end it all. LMAO, am I right? Don't you relate, guys? Guys? Enough with the self-deprecation, enough with the hopelessness and despair, and enough with the doomer mindset. Right now, it's more tempting than ever to be a complete doomer. Maybe your chosen candidate didn't win, or you're expecting political violence. We are scarily close to a potential recession, and all of the wars in the world are heating up. It would be so easy for me to just reaffirm your beliefs and tell you how right you are. But I refuse. During the darkest hour, light is most visible. The flickering flame of a hope-scented candle is barely noticeable in the day, but at night, it shines brightest. If you refuse to be a doomer during these trying times, I promise you, your life will be much easier and more enjoyable. And I'm not just some out-of-touch upper-middle-class yuppie who thinks people should simply stop being sad and smile instead. I actually used to have an extremely strong desire to end my own life. I had very few things to my name. My various mental conditions and problems made it extremely difficult for me to simply live life day to day, and I was fully consumed in this doomer mindset. I used to think it was the truth, until I got better, and that's the thing. I managed to get better. I'm still not perfect, but I feel like I know what I'm doing now, and I wanted to share all of the things that helped me to personally get out of that doomer mindset. So please, at least listen to what I have to say, even if it almost seems delusional to be this hopeful and optimistic during these trying times. Okay, so I made a video previously called Why Gen Z Can't Lose Hope, and while I still stand by what I said, many people were correct in pointing out that they never had hope to begin with, and I didn't explain how you would be able to find hope in a sea of hopelessness. Here's how it started. So I was struggling with depression, but I was actively trying to fight against it because I had something to fight for. In my case, it was the desire to help people in a similar situation. I thought if I could get better, then maybe there's some hope for all of us. So I really tried to understand the source of my depression by doing a written interview of it. I would ask it a question and try to answer as truthfully as possible, and this helped me to determine the root cause of my issues. Even though it seemed silly at the time, doing this interview with my depression enabled me to start working on myself and searching for the correct solutions, because if you are depressed, there's probably multiple reasons behind it. There are more ways for introspection, but what I can say is substance abuse is not going to help you figure out your problems. And the real problem with being a doomer is depression. When you're depressed, you're more prone to addiction, because you start looking for short bursts of relief from your constant pain. But then the things that used to bring you relief are now part of the problem. The longer this goes untreated, the more difficult it will be to live a good life. So don't be stupid like me and ask for help. But depressed people usually can't ask for help due to various reasons, because they believe they will just be a burden, or they don't have anyone in their life to help them like that. And to have hope in a better future, you must first work on the present circumstances. That is the only way. So the best way I found to combat depression is to make yourself mentally strong enough to ask for help and go from there. Because again, it's possible to recover on your own. It's just needlessly difficult and far less likely. But generally speaking, you have to shift your perspective of things gradually from negativity to positivity. Oh, and if you're waiting for the perfect moment to turn your life around, it will never come. Because the only moment that we ever have and can change is right now. If you start now, you'll have a better tomorrow. You can start with something that doesn't really require work. You need to start celebrating your wins properly. You know that meme where people say they just feel relief instead of a sense of accomplishment? Yeah, that's no bueno. Celebrate it as much as you can. Take every W, as small as it might seem. And vice versa. You need to distance yourself from the things that make you severely depressed as much as you can. If it's your job, for example, there's not a lot you can do besides coping around it. But what you can do is limit the amount of stressful information you consume. Catastrophic events are happening all over the world right now, with the biggest event recently being the US elections, which made a lot of people lose hope for humanity. Now, let me remind you that politics shouldn't dictate your mental health in the first place, because they are a vicious poison to the brain. I am convinced you can't be deeply entrenched in politics without suffering some form of brain damage, or consistently knowing which diseases are spreading through the world right now, and if some of them manage to become a pandemic. We have a bias towards negativity, which leads us into a spiral of media that only confirms our beliefs. If you're stuck with an algorithm that keeps feeding you negative information, you will most likely be a negative person, because you become what you feed your mind. We also weren't designed to have near omnipotent knowledge of our surroundings, so it's best not to care emotionally about things that don't affect us directly. Care for the people close to you and your surroundings instead. You can't stop the world from spinning, so stick to your actions which you can control. That's why the whole doomer mindset and the "it's over" narrative is so self-destructive. Seeking nihilistic outside sources of pleasure is gonna make you super depressed, because happiness comes from within. Worrying about the world and its current circumstances is going to achieve nothing. I'm sorry, but unless you prepare yourself for tough times, worrying about the possibility of a dystopian future that hasn't happened yet will only make you more miserable. Okay, this was a huge discovery for me, but when it comes to negative things, you need to be reactionary instead of obsessing about the possibilities. I don't mean preparing for the worst case scenario, but obsessing over how much this is going to suck. And what if this unexpectedly goes wrong? Or what if a meteor hits me in the balls while I was eating spaghetti? Most of the scenarios in our heads are infinitely worse than what is realistically most likely to happen. For example, asking someone out. Many people won't do it because they not only fear the rejection, but the judgment of the other person, and how much it is going to suck to get rejected. But if you don't ask them out, you will never know if it could have worked. There's always a chance of this insane plan actually working out in your favor, and in most cases they won't hate you like you're the Antichrist for asking them out. But here's the key life hack. Until the event happened, don't even think about the negative outcome. Focus on the good outcome instead. Imagine if they say yes. What would you have done if they said no? I guess we'll never know. When it comes to dealing with failure, we should only deal with failures that have actually happened, because if we start dealing with hypothetical failures, we'll never get anywhere. This might sound obvious, but I used to obsess over the negative possibilities of my actions. And here's the tragedy. Obsessing over failure actually makes the failure worse when it does happen. Because you tried so hard to avoid it and it still happened. It's like getting hit with a pain twice. And it puts you into a negative feedback loop of you believing you should try less. And next time, think about failing and how bad it would be even harder. Failure is the natural outcome. The master has failed more times than the student even tried. It is the vehicle for success. If you choose to care about your failure a healthy amount and focus on what you can do to succeed, this will make things much easier for you. In fact, you should try to do some things you think you will fail at to get comfortable with the feeling. Once failure becomes easy for you, success is bound to happen, and sometimes you will succeed even if you expected it to fail. But notice how I specified that preparing for the worst is not a bad idea. Because if you do feel trapped by your current circumstances and you want to do something about it, you absolutely should. Many people are starting to get into prepping now in light of, well, everything. Being prepared for the worst case scenarios is not bad at all. It actually comes in handy more than you think. Just recently, the absolutely devastating flood that happened in Valencia, Spain. People were locked in their homes for its duration, and I would imagine it took out the power supplies of many homes, leaving them without properly working necessities. I would suggest to have enough unrefrigerated food and clean water to last you for at least a week. The food doesn't have to taste good. Just get beans and rice, although rice will require cooking, so keep that in mind. During these extremely tense times, it is also of the utmost importance to keep your family safe. So I hope you have a plan to keep them safe by any means necessary. If you don't have a plan and crap hit the fan, you'll wish you prepared better. So prepping is fine and good, but obsessing over the end of civilization is plain unhealthy. So far, humans have survived every event that was thrown at us for thousands of years, but I know this isn't enough for you. Because what if those soulless, ugly cowards start nuking everything? Well, there is nothing you can do. It's like what if a herd of Godzillas started blasting everything around them? It is unequivocally the end of us. But if there's nothing you can do, why get sad about it now? Shouldn't it be an incentive to use the time you have now as best as you can because the future is even more uncertain? You know that quote, "I wish when we were in the good old times." The answer is always now. You will never be the same age you are today, and you don't know what's gonna happen tomorrow, so now's the time to try and do something fun before a disaster happens. But if a disaster does happen, how would we deal with it? Because ignorance is bliss, of course, but we know that as of publishing this video, a lot of things could go wrong very quickly. And to answer that, I looked at one of the most extreme examples, to show you that even in the worst of times, you can survive. Holocaust survivors. How did Holocaust survivors find the will to live? As I stated previously, they focused on the present because they very well could have never woken up the next day. But with concentration camps specifically, they were able to engage in a lot of culture, like music and the arts, because Jewish artists and musicians were present in the camps. This resulted in a very culturally rich environment in spite of the abhorrent, inhumane, disgusting circumstances these people were forced into, but music and art was imperative for coping with their situation. A lot of them also held on to their Jewish faith to get through the days. One survivor described it as grasping at straws, but the straws somehow prevailed. Side note, when I listened to all of these harrowing stories about the Holocaust, it made me realize that I don't have it so bad, and that my problems are completely fixable, even if they don't seem like it. It was literally the small things in life, like being able to smuggle a potato and cucumber under your clothes, singing folk songs and reciting poetry. You absolutely have to appreciate the beauty in the mundane to live a good life that's worth it. Most of our daily activities are very mundane, and that's okay. Going to work or school, hearing the birds chirp in the morning and having the sun set so it can rise again. If you start appreciating how beautiful those bird songs actually are, and how magnificent the sun is, and the privilege of seeing it rise and set every single day. The kebab man who knows your order and calls you boss. The smell of plants finally getting hydrated by the rain after a long drought. Your favorite shoes kicking the autumn leaves around in such a satisfying way. If you want to love life, you have to fall in love with it first. Once you notice all of the pleasant things and just how special each tiny seemingly insignificant moment is, your life will feel like an absolute gift. People who have nearly perished describe how they learn to appreciate life in its entirety after it's been almost taken away from them. And it's easy to forget how much good we actually have. We get complacent with our lives, thinking about what we don't have. But if your mind is always in the realm of loss and desire, you will never rid yourself of your misery. If you start appreciating life for what it is, especially the mundane, it will make it worth living. I did actually almost exit this earth early through drowning, and let me tell you, even the simple act of breathing is a privilege. I was pretty depressed at the time, but almost drowning was so much worse. All of my other problems paled in comparison. It made me realize my problems were only important to me because I made them important. In reality, they were irrelevant. You don't know what you have until it gets taken away, so please, focus on what you do have. I can't force you to have an NDE and think about your memento mori, but instead of obsessing over how everything is and how dystopian the future will become, think about what you have achieved so far in life, if it were to end right now, and what you want to achieve. Nihilism quickly fades away once you're actually faced with your own mortality and a terrible, terrible fate. Just make sure you survive today. Whenever an uncertain future arises, you must focus on the now. This might sound a bit silly, but getting a pet can definitely give you a reason to live, and it will brighten up your life. These little creatures are dependent on you, so they immediately give you a reason to keep fighting through the tough times, because you only want what's best for these adorable little gifts of nature. After you have bonded with an animal, they will love you unconditionally. Cat owners might disagree, but the love from an animal is very pure, especially with dogs for example. Although other cats and critters love you all the same, they see the best in you, and you'll become their favorite person to be around if you bond with them. They will comfort you when you're sad. Like, I don't even know how cats and dogs specifically are able to do this, but they're even able to predict panic attacks and strokes. I know my cat can somehow feel when I'm down and will appear on my lap to comfort me. It definitely feels like they have a supernatural sense of empathy, but a pet can really save you. If you buy a high maintenance animal like a dog, they will also incentivize you to take daily walks with them so you can get some vitamin D and maybe enjoy your surroundings. But this heavily depends on the area you live in. I'm looking at you, East Berlin. You'll also have to take care of them, so if you start bed rotting all day, your silly little creature will not stop reminding you of your duties, and they are extremely persistent. And they are also very good at emotionally manipulating you. It's called puppy dog eyes for a reason, and cats can easily do this too, of course. A pet is a game changer when it comes to beating your depressed and hopeless state. Just make sure you'll be able to provide for them financially. And see what breeds are anti-allergic if you have an allergy to them. I actually used to be allergic to cats, but I'm not anymore. Now, I've been talking about the misery and hopelessness that has seemingly increased because of tough times, but this brings us to the core of the issue of hopelessness and doomerism in my opinion. Depression. Why even try anything if you're gonna be just as depressed tomorrow as you have been today? Some might say they're depressed because they have lost all hope, but this is kind of like did the chicken come before the egg situation. Either way, you're slowly losing your will to go on, and you feel like you can't do anything in life, and the only emotions you're able to experience are inherently negative. Depression sucks. Plain and simple. It's the worst, and it can come out of nowhere. Even if you have everything in theory that should make you happy, it can rear its ugly head and start telling you lies. And it lies a lot to get you to your rotting state. Being depressed is a lot like AIDS in my opinion, an autoimmune disease of the mind. The very means and methods to fight against depression is also the target of depression, so it's not your fault for being depressed even if you're trying really hard to stay sane and stay positive. Depression is also one of the few mental states that is arguably worse the more intelligent you are, because your mind will come up with more complex reasons to keep you miserable. It tricks you into always focusing on the negative, or even perceiving neutral things as negative. This is a problem because most of our situations and the reactions of other people are actually very neutral. We don't live in an anime world where people get that swirl when they get angry at you, or start jumping up and down when they're happy. If you are depressed, the most neutral interactions with strangers will come off as negative, and this further isolates depressed people, worsening their condition, leaving them socially crippled because they don't want to talk to anyone. It's too painful. Here's the single biggest trick I have learned to beat that mindset: reality bending. When I'm ordering my shawarma and the shawarma man asks me to repeat my order a little louder, I won't assume that he's very angry at me for wasting his time with my mumbled words. In neutral interactions, you can't read a person's mind, so you might as well assume a good outcome for more confidence. Just because you needed to repeat your order doesn't mean there's something wrong with your voice, or that workers are annoyed when they have to ask you again. In most cases, they don't even think about it because it's their job. They deal with infinitely ruder people all the time. This was just an example because I know a lot of people struggle with ordering for themselves. This might also be due to social anxiety, which is a common comorbidity for being in a depressed state, but I'm not here to diagnose you. Assuming the best in neutral interactions will make you a lot more confident with yourself, and being confident results in more positive interactions, thus creating a positive feedback loop. So when you lack info on something that happened to you, try not to obsess over the worst possible interpretations. Either move on, or just say it is what it is. It's never easy to get out of a depressive state. And if you have clinical depression, the mental disorder, you may need medication to deal with it because your brain chemistry is messed up. Holistic methods are only going to take you so far, but the good news is that holistically speaking, there's a lot you can do to get out of your predicament. For example, you'll need to do a lot of introspection to get to the root of your issues and find your purpose in life. And you'll need to change some beliefs. If you don't believe in anything, you will end up believing in the idea of nothing, which is still a belief. Our perception of reality is entirely in our head, so beliefs affect you and your experience with reality directly. Even nihilism and atheism are still beliefs after all. It's not objective reality. We don't know what happens to us after we pass on, or what the nature of consciousness is. Nihilism is just the belief it's all one big nothing, which tends to make people depressed. So if your own belief system is making you depressed, maybe it's time to change it. Your belief of how things are is directly under your control. So why would you stick with something that makes you miserable just because you believe it's the truth? Funnily enough, in an attempt to distance itself from religion, atheism is still a religion. Their god is science, and you can ask them all the same questions about where did science come from? And is there an afterlife? And they also only have speculations and myths. I think you should construct your own belief system, because if you blindly follow any faith, including atheism, it will blind you to the truth and give you a bunch of unfounded biases about how things are. If you're seeking the truth, then having beliefs that aren't tied to any institution or single idea will have a higher chance of finding the truth. Remember, we experience reality entirely in our own heads, so even if there is an objective reality out there, we live in our own world to an extent. This is important when you're looking for the truth, because if you get too focused on one particular idea on how things work, you will start bending facts so they fit your prescription of reality. This happens subconsciously though, so you don't even notice it. Why am I saying this? Because if you start following nihilism and atheism with all your heart and soul, you will start looking for evidence that there is nothing after we pass away. There are no higher beings and consciousness is just a byproduct of our deterministic brains. I cannot understate that this is all unconfirmed. Just because it's easy to understand and it confirms your personal experience with life, doesn't prove that it's objectively true. If atheism and nihilism genuinely makes you happy somehow, that's great for you. But most nihilists I have talked to are more like Rick from Rick and Morty. minus the super genius scientist part. I would love to see more optimistic nihilists though, like, nothing I do in this world matters. Awesome! Doomers and nihilists often justify their beliefs by claiming it's the ultimate truth and they have just chosen to accept it, like any other religion out there. But because we don't know what the truth is, you should definitely believe in what benefits you the most. And if you truly search for the ultimate truth, you have to stay open-minded. I think you should choose your beliefs about life and our conscious existence on this planet based on the survival of the fittest strategy. The closer your belief is to the truth, the easier it is to stand by your belief, because the truth tends to prove itself with no defense or justification necessary on your part. Your belief should ideally also be evolving, because if a change in environment invalidates your belief, it's not the truth anymore. Here are some stories that have helped me change into a more positive outlook on life instead of being consumed by all the negativity and emptiness. The belief in objective true good and true evil. Now, I like moral relativism as much as the next person. Sometimes it's okay to lie if it means saving someone, or starting a side business to pay for your medical expenses. But if you go down the rabbit hole of the moral gray area, because the world is survival of the fittest, you'll fall down a slippery slope. With moral grayness, you can easily slip down the path of doing a ton of damage to yourself and the people around you. This is greatly demonstrated in the show BoJack Horseman with its titular character, if you want to see an example of what I mean. And being a bad person sucks. Even if you lack empathy and purely choose the most advantageous decisions for yourself, like Machiavelli, you'll find yourself alone, in jail, or addicted to substances to fill the void in your heart. If you believe in objective morals and at least try to follow them to the best of your abilities, it is much harder to go down the pipeline from Walter White to Heisenberg. Being a good person is of great benefit to you. Not only do people treat you better, but it gives you a strong sense of purpose and accomplishment. And of course it is good for everyone else. If everyone around you is a good person as well who do altruistic deeds for each other, everyone is much happier and feels more fulfilled. This is why most religions try to hammer the significance of what it means to be good and why you should be and do good down into the core of your very being. I know that it looks hard to be altruistic, and it is, but trying to be good to others and yourself will give you all the hope and purpose you're searching for. For me personally, this belief was more powerful than getting a cat. But they are related since being kind to animals is objectively good. It's not that I was a bad person, I was just indifferent to everything because I thought my actions were meaningless, so why should I go out of my way to help people? Another important belief that set me free was the search for the truth. You might be thinking, but wait, for me, there is nothing after we pass away and consciousness is just an illusion. That's my truth. If you start searching for it, you will always stumble upon this thought, because before you see everything, you have to see nothing. Scientifically, it is a logical conclusion since you don't remember anything before you were born, so the state before birth will likely be the state before your departure, until you start doing more research. Why do so many mathematicians and scientists believe in something grander? Not even necessarily religious, just something more than us. And you see this in every field. A programmer will look at the universe and see immaculate code. An artist will see the unbelievable composition, the colors, and the subject. Even Nikola Tesla believed in something grander than us, and he was, in my opinion, one of the smartest people in all of history. Once you learn about the intricacies and secrets of the universe, you will see patterns that defy chaos, defy randomness. You have probably seen one side of the coin, that it's all a big nothing, but the other side is that it's everything, the greatest thing to ever exist, and you're a part of it. And we know nothing about it, truly, we haven't even begun to figure it out. So don't fool yourself into thinking you have the ultimate truth and everyone else is wrong. Maybe we're all right in some way, or maybe we're all wrong. The closer you get to the truth of the meaning of life, the more it will actually set you free. But you have to come to the conclusion yourself. It's like if I gave you the answer to an impossibly difficult math question, you still wouldn't understand why it's the answer. Even I don't know if I have the correct answer, but what I'm saying is, stay open-minded and keep searching for the truth. Even if you believe in something that's not necessarily true, your belief still objectively has power. Don't believe me? Well, the placebo effect is a testament to how powerful our belief is. Fun fact, did you know SSRI medication against depression is effective on about 40% of people who take them, while the humble placebo effect is effective on 30% of the people that take them? This absolutely blew me away when I found out because you can theoretically achieve the effectiveness of an SSRI through simply believing in healing magic, or a miracle pill to cure your depression, or that God will fix your sadness, and it can work, without any side effects as well. Of course you should consider going to a licensed professional and getting a prescription for your ailments, but you shouldn't sleep on holistic methods. even if you do have meds, which you should probably take if you forgot to today. So if you're not already using the placebo effect to your advantage, I most definitely would. I know I have actually used it to heal some problem areas that have given me a lot of pain, and the placebo effect worked in my favor to take the pain away. So belief has power, that's scientifically proven, but it doesn't have to be directed towards any religion or God. Nonetheless, you should use the power of your belief to your advantage. To me, it's essentially magic. There is also the nocebo effect, which is the opposite. If you believe that something is not going to work, then it has a higher likelihood of failure. This is why having faith in yourself and your hope of getting better someday are so important, because the belief alone is able to induce the placebo effect. In theory, at least. The effect actually goes even deeper than this. It has been proven that just thinking about doing an activity improves your skill at it. So if you imagine yourself writing huge paragraphs about this one project you need to finish, you'll actually perform better when it comes to doing the task. This even works with sports. So if you're stuck in your bed, or you find yourself in a loop where you just work, eat, doom scroll and sleep all day, imagine yourself doing the thing you're supposed to be doing. Think about it as long as possible, until your thoughts turn into action. Because that's actually the secret to motivation. Functionally, motivation is just keeping a thought in your head. That's it. It's not something you have to cultivate or spontaneously receive. Being motivated is focusing on the task at hand and nothing else. This is why distractions are so bad for you. Your escapism from the pain actually takes away your ability to regain control over your life and your actions. The only thing escapism leads to is imprisonment of the mind. So even if you're just enjoying yourself, focus on one thing at a time, so your relaxation will actually be relaxing instead of being in this state of functional paralysis. Procrastinating and doom scrolling isn't relaxing, it's actually very stressful, so no wonder you never have the energy to do anything. Learning how to relax properly will give you the energy you need to finish a task. Unless you have ADHD, in which case, set a bunch of deadlines for yourself so the time pressure kicks your butt into action. The truth is, the hope you're looking for has always been within you. You can only work with it now, and every day you wake up as a different person essentially, with the baggage of your previous decisions, so make the best of what you got and set yourself up for an easier future. Obsessing over the past is just making you more depressed and focusing on things that are out of your control. Oh, and this goes without saying, but if you're in this doomer mindset, trademark, it might be because you live an unhealthy lifestyle. Eating nutritious food, being hydrated, getting enough vitamin D, getting to bed on time, and sleeping enough all contribute directly to your well-being, mental and physical. The more healthy your lifestyle is, the happier you will actually be. While staying in bed all day and scrolling on Reddit to see what the US Congress is up to this time might be entertaining, but it won't make you happy, nor does social media in general give you happiness. It just takes away the pain through distraction. Like imagine you have a broken leg and instead of getting a cast you just eat painkillers until the leg crookedly heals itself. This is what you're doing to your mental health. While things like working out aren't immediately pleasurable, they will give you delayed gratification that is much more sustained than whatever the hell they show you on TikTok. And there is a huge silver lining to all of this though. To all of this misery, despair and doom scrolling. There's a part of you that hasn't given up yet, even if it feels like it. You clicked on this video after all, because you want to fight it, you want to keep trying. It's just become so burrowed in your mind that you may not be able to see it anymore. Something is still there that keeps you going. There's a part of you that knows you can get better, that knows life is worth living. After all, even those people who believe in heaven choose to stay on this earth. You have to feed this part, instead of the one who sees nothing. It knows that there's hope for you. It's desperately trying to break out of your vicious cycles of negative thoughts and self-fulfilling prophecies. You don't even need to know what it is. The most important part is that it's there. Maybe it's the shame you would feel from your family, or the pet that's relying on you. Maybe it's because you live to spite the universe, to spite everyone and everything who said you're worthless. No matter the reason, you're still here. But did you notice something? Shame, spite, regret, fear. A lot of people focus on the negative sides of their reasons to keep living in spite of all the pain. A lot of this depression and all the other brainworms associated with it are warping your perception of things. But I have genuinely met people whose entire life revolved around living because it would be an embarrassment to end it all. If your family is the reason you keep going, that means you love and care for them on some level, even if it doesn't feel like it. If you didn't care about what they thought, you probably wouldn't be here. Loving your pets is love too. It's not pathetic if that's what keeps you going. To live in spite is an act of rebellion. Courage. Your existence is a fluke, and you embrace its impossibility fully. Because the indomitable human spirit just keeps going, even if the going gets impossible. If you just framed your reasons to live in a more positive way, it might help you realize that there's things left for you on this earth to love, and that love is so valuable it has kept you alive in times of immense struggle. You can still make your parents proud. You can't change the past and all the time you spent being burned out or rotting in your bed. Those things happened, and you must accept that they did. But what you can change is the present, little by little, bit by bit, and by changing the present, you create a chain of events that change your future for the better. If you always wanted to write a book, manga, or comic, but you think you don't have the talent, you know who also thought he didn't have the talent? Franz Kafka, one of the most acclaimed and greatest authors in our history. Or Van Gogh. His paintings weren't famous when he was alive, but now they are world-renowned. Who knows if you could be next? We are our own greatest critic, and even if your art, your programming, your writing is terrible, how are you supposed to get better at it if you don't even start? I believe you have something of value to add to this world, even if you don't know what it is yet. Your experience of life is entirely unique to you, therefore, you have the power to create something only you can. You are a cosmic impossibility. Life is rare in the universe, let alone winning the sperm race and surviving past childhood. By all means, you shouldn't even exist. Yet you do. Is it really that bad if life was meaningless? Do you look at a blank canvas and experience despair? If life is a blank canvas, devoid of meaning, then you are the artist who can paint it how you like, and assign your own unique meaning to it. Or if the meaning of life was to simply live life, is that too simple for you? We aren't alive for very long, and you know how hard it is to actually stay alive. So what if survival is enough? Most of us aren't going to be kings, rulers, superstars, and legends. But does it really matter if you were important to at least one person? Yourself. Historically, we are all eventually forgotten. Our species has existed for 200,000 years now, yet our oldest known civilization are the Sumerians, who also have legends of people who came before them. But history can only be forgotten, not erased. In a way, you are in this very moment, eternally existent in the timeline. Would you even care whether you were remembered after your passing? You can't know. The only thing you do know is how people think of you in the present. So go out there and love the people closest to you. We all live in our own little worlds, our own perceptions of reality, so why not embrace it and try to make yourself and the people around you better? In my search for a grand meaning of the universe, I forgot to look at the small things, but the meaning for me was there all along. Life is a collection of infinitely cascading atomic and subatomic particles. Literally everything is made out of smaller things, to make one big thing. What kept me going was to help others like me. I literally had the answer to my question all along. Needless to say that your reason to live on this earth, in this world, your reason to hope for a better tomorrow, to hope for the best, is probably within you all along. So how do you find hope? How do you stop being a doomer? By being yourself, your true self, not the facade you have created for other people, not what others want you to be. It's not what you think you should be. It doesn't have anything to do with masculinity or femininity or any box that tries to categorize you. If you understand your true self and everything that comes with it, ambitions, goals and all, you will inevitably understand why you're still here, what you want, and how you're going to achieve it. The only faith you need to have is yourself. Having faith in oneself is how people survived for eons, because if you believe that you are a failure beyond saving, you seal your own future to a terrible fate. Of course it's good to have faith in more things, but to have faith in anything, you must believe in yourself first. So to summarize, you need to do a lot of introspection, shift your perception of things into the positive, don't dwell on factors outside of your control, and be the one who gives your life meaning. Thank you so much for watching, and a special thank you to my patrons. Like and subscribe if you feel like it, and I have a Discord server linked in the description below if you want to talk to me. This video was very important to me, and I hope I could help you in some way. Again, this is just what I learned from my journey so far, so let's see where it takes me. Bye bye.